There was no trace of life throughout Flower Palace. An enormous pool of blood resided before Xianxia's group, and a few thousand disciples of the Flower Palace were within the pool of blood. At this moment, all of them were howling incessantly. They wanted to fly out from within it, but an invisible force stopped them from doing so. Chen Huagu, Chen Hui, and Chen Nianzi were standing by the pool of blood. Chen Huagu had an emotionless expression on her face, and it was like she hadn't seen the scene within the pool of blood. On the other hand, Chen Nianzi and Chen Hui had their eyes closed tightly, while their faces were covered in an expression of pain. Martial ancestor, why treat us like this? Ah, you old hag. I'll never forgive you even if I have to come back as a ghost. I'll never forgive you. Ah, ha ha ha. I never expected that Fu Rong, didn't die at the hands of Yang Yi, but I died at the hands of my own sect instead. How truly laughable. How laughable. Ha 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 ha. Karma will come for all of you. Ah! Chen Huagu remained indifferent while hearing the screams of those disciples within the pool. Whereas, Chen Hui and Chen Nianzi clenched their fists tightly while their figures were trembling slightly. In next to no time, the screams quieted down and vanished. It's still not enough. Chen Huagu sighed lightly as if she hadn't noticed Yang Ye's group. Chen Hui opened her eyes while a trace of resolve could be seen within her eyes. She walked slowly towards the pool of blood, but was stopped by Chen Huagu, who said, I watched both of you grow up, and both of you haven't done anything bad throughout your lifetimes. There are some things which both of you shouldn't shoulder, and it shouldn't be done by the two of you as well. Senior sister. Chen Hui spoke with a trembling voice. Chen Huagu shook her head, and then she gazed at Yang Ye's group and said, Based on your forces, it seems like you aren't even willing to let the three of us go. Yang Yi glanced at the pool of blood before he said, I once swore that I would definitely eliminate the Flower Palace from the Southern Territory while I lived. Now I've come to keep that promise. Don't worry. Even those disciples who fled will be coming to accompany all of you. My mother's life will be repaid with the lives of everyone from the Flower Palace. Chen Huagu said, Actually, I felt regretful from the moment I found out you'd become the Sword Emperor. I regretted killing your mother because I knew that I'd made a formidable enemy for the Flower Palace. So, I tried my very best to eliminate you, and I even didn't hesitate to convince both the Origin School and Ghost Sect to side with Luo Jun. But I never expected that even Luo Jun wasn't able to do anything to you. It's pointless to say all of that now, isn't it? Said Yang Yi. Chen Huagu nodded and said, It's pointless indeed, because regardless of the outcome today, the Flower Palace will cease to exist, and I'm bound to become a sinner of the sect. Right, there really wasn't anything within the coffin of my Flower Palace's founding ancestor when you opened it up in the graveyard of flowers that day. Do you know why? Yang Ye's eyes narrowed slightly as a bad feeling arose in his heart. Chen Huagu continued, Because my Flower Palace's founding ancestor isn't dead. Understand? Yang Ye's expression changed. The founding ancestor of the Flower Palace had established it over 10,000 years ago, and she was a Saint Realm expert at that time. Of course, Saint Realm experts were a legend to the current continent, but while they were still rare during the ancient times, there were quite a few of them. Since the Flower Palace's founding ancestor hadn't died, didn't that mean she was still living in this world? Even the expressions of Xiao Tianji and the others changed when they thought of such a possibility. If the founding ancestor of the Flower Palace was still here, then it wouldn't have declined to such an extent. Meanwhile, Ding Xiaoyao's voice resounded abruptly. Chen Huagu suddenly started laughing, and she laughed for a while before she said, Since the Sword Sect could summon its founding ancestor that day, then why can't my Flower Palace do the same? Yang Yi, you caused the destruction of my Flower Palace, and I'll make you pay with your life today. As she spoke, Chen Huagu suddenly flew into the pool of blood. Senior sister. Chen Hui and Chen Nianzi's expressions changed drastically, while the expressions on the faces of Xiao Tianji and the others had become unprecedentedly solemn. Ha ha ha! Yang Yi, let me see who will be able to save you now. Let's see who can save you. I offer my blood to summon the soul of my ancestor. As her voice resounded, an explosion resounded from within the pool of blood. Everyone watched with shock as her figure exploded apart, and then the blood within the pool instantly seemed as if it was boiling, and enormous scarlet-red bubbles ceaselessly bubbled out from within it. Bang! A pillar of blood shot into the sky. In an instant, the entire world seemed as if it was dyed red with blood. The expressions of Xianxia and the others had changed once more because they sensed a feeling of danger. "Yang Yi, leave before us," said Ding Xiaoyao. "It's too late." Qian Hui spoke softly. Bang! Another enormous explosion rumbled through the horizon, and the world trembled. After that, countless bolts of multicolored lightning and dark red heavenly flames appeared in the sky. At this moment, even the sun was blotted out by the lightning and heavenly flames, and the countless experts throughout the continent were shocked. "This is impossible. This is impossible. Impossible. 10-colored divine lightning and dark heavenly flames. How could this be possible? Is a real Saint Realm expert about to make an appearance?" The founding emperor's voice trembled slightly as he gazed at the horizon. "Founding ancestor." Both Qian Hui and Xianxia's eyes burned with a fervent glow. At this moment, Yang Ye's eyes were filled with shock. Could it be that the Flower Palace is really able to summon a Saint Realm expert of legend? If they really summoned a Saint Realm expert, then not to mention Yang Yi, even the demon territory and devil territory could be annihilated in an instant, let alone the exalted Han Empire. Right at this moment, an unexpected event occurred. Countless bolts of 9-colored divine lightning suddenly appeared in the horizon. These bolts of divine lightning transformed into numerous enormous lightning dragons that pounced at the 10-colored divine lightning and dark heavenly flames. Xiao Tianji revealed a slightly delighted expression as he said, "This world is resisting it. Right, if a Saint Realm expert were to make an appearance here, then it would definitely cause the world to be threatened. But I never imagined that the Flower Palace would actually be able to summon a Saint Realm expert." Rumble! Rumble! Rumbled suddenly resounded throughout the horizon as the lightning dragons collided with the dark heavenly flames and 10-colored divine lightning. In an instant, they exploded apart and transformed into countless arcs of electricity that rained down from the sky. Meanwhile, a ball of dark blue light descended swiftly from the horizon, and then everyone watched with shock as it entered Qian Hui's body. A short while passed before Qian Hui suddenly opened her eyes, and a cold glow flashed through them. Moreover, the space before Qian Hua was instantly crushed into powder. "Who destroyed my Flower Palace?" A completely emotionless voice resounded from Qian Hui, and it caused Yang Yi and the others to feel cold. "A Saint Realm expert?" Yang Yi and the others were shocked to the limit. Right at this moment, a black vortex suddenly appeared in the sky, and it covered the entire sky above them. After that, all of them watched with astonishment as an enormous black-colored finger emerged slowly from within the vortex and descended towards Qian Hui. Yang Ye's pupils constricted. That's the same enormous finger that descended when Taoist Zue tried to overcome the Heaven Path. Even the one who's in control of the Heaven Path refuses to tolerate the founding ancestor of the Flower Palace? Humph! Qian Hui grunted coldly as she waved her hand, and then a pillar of flowers charged into the sky and collided with the enormous finger. Bang! The entire finger hadn't even been able to emerge completely from the black vortex when it was blasted into pieces. How audacious! A furious roar resounded from the sky, and the voice carried a strange energy that made the souls of Yang Yi and the others tremble uncontrollably. Yang Ye's expression changed slightly, and he hurriedly utilized his sword intent and sword domain to resist its effects before he felt slightly better. As soon as that voice finished resounding, an enormous palm emerged from within the vortex, and then it dropped quickly down towards Qian Hui. Qian Hui's expression was icy cold as she flipped her right palm swiftly, and then the energy within the world suddenly surged explosively towards her. In just an instant, the energy within an area of 500 kilometers had been completely extracted, and a dazzling and beautiful flower which was formed from energy had appeared on her palm. After that, she suddenly tossed it up into the sky. The gorgeous flower left a long trail of light behind as it collided with the enormous hand. Bang! rumbling resounded like a thunderclap, and all the profounders throughout the southern territory heard it, causing them to feel astonished and shoot their gazes in the direction of the Flower Palace. What exactly has happened? It seemed like a volcano had erupted in the sky above the Flower Palace, and countless torrents of energy were raining down towards the surroundings. All the mountains in an area of 500 kilometers around the Flower Palace were instantly obliterated into powder from the force within these torrents of energy. Saints are prohibited from appearing in profounder continent. If you still refuse to leave, then today will be the day that you perish. A voice resounded once more from within the vortex. 2 hours. I'll leave in 2 hours. Chen Hui's icy cold voice resounded. A short moment of silence ensued before the vortex vanished in the end. The hearts of Yang Yi and the others sank when they witnessed this scene. After all, they'd personally witnessed Chen Hui's strength, so even if she wasn't a true Saint Realm expert, she was at the half-Saint Realm at the very least. So how would they go against her? Can Elder Mu fight her? She's a living Saint Realm expert. Even though only her soul has descended here, she's still a Saint Realm expert. Chen Hui withdrew her gaze after the vortex in the sky had vanished, and then she glanced at the surroundings before she'd immediately taken in the entire situation within the Flower Palace. Chen Hui's gaze grew even more icy cold when she noticed that only less than 200 people remained in the Flower Palace. Xianxia knelt on the ground and said, "Your unfilial disciple, Xianxia, greets the founding ancestor." Chen Hui said, "What exactly did my Flower Palace do to suffer such a calamity?" As she spoke, Chen Hui closed her eyes for a short while before she opened them once more, and then her gaze descended onto Yang Yi as she said, "So it was because of you." The expressions of Xiao Tianji and the others grew even more vigilant. Yang Yi took a deep breath and said, "It was indeed I who wanted to destroy the Flower Palace." Chen Hui said, "It was Chen Huagu who killed your mother, so it would be sufficient just to kill her. However, you slaughtered all the disciples of my Flower Palace. Is there any difference between such actions and the profounders of the Devil Dao in the past?" Yang Yi shrugged and said, "You're mistaken. It wasn't I who slaughtered the disciples of your Flower Palace, and it was those 3 good disciples of yours. It was they who sacrificed the lives of all the disciples of your Flower Palace. Even though I would still kill them even if the 3 of them hadn't, the facts are that they killed those disciples. So, you should take revenge on those 3 disciples of yours if you intend to seek revenge. Do you know why I still haven't killed you?" Chen Hui spoke abruptly. Yang Ye's heart shook. "So this woman has wanted to kill me since the beginning." Chen Hui said, "You were able perfection in sword intent, the enlightened sword heart, and comprehend the sword domain at such a young age. Your natural talent would be rare even if it were all those years ago. Once you grow stronger, you'll definitely become a peerless warrior of my human race. Unfortunately, your actions have forced me to kill you, otherwise, wouldn't the disciples of my Flower Palace have died for nothing?" As soon as she finished speaking, Chen Hui intended to attack. However, a little girl suddenly appeared in front of Yang Yi. Yang Yi was stunned, and then he hurriedly pulled her towards him and stood in front of her before he said furiously, "What are you doing here?" The little girl wasn't even able to defeat 9th rank Monarch Realm experts, but Chen Hui was at the half-Saint Realm at the very least. So wasn't she courting death by coming out here? Yang Yi hadn't noticed that Chen Hui was stunned upon noticing the little girl, and then a wisp of bewilderment appeared in her eyes. The founding emperor, Beast Emperor, Xiao Tianji, and the others were stunned as well because even they didn't know how the little girl arrived here. Both the founding emperor and Beast Emperor took a deep and long glance at Yang Yi. They noticed that Yang Yi seemed to have become even more mysterious. The little girl glanced at Yang Yi and said, "That woman has imprisoned that master of yours. No one in this world, not even the world itself, can do anything to this woman. Understand?" Yang Yi was stunned. He'd thought that Chen Hui was a half-saint at most, but he hadn't expected that she would actually be able to trap Elder Mu. Even Elder Mu is helpless against her. Then can anyone in this world resist her? A short while later, Yang Yi laughed bitterly and shook his head. No wonder you showed yourself. It's because both of us will be unable to escape death no matter what. Right? Xianxia felt that he'd tried his best, and he'd worked very hard to become stronger. But it couldn't be helped because the people his opponents summoned were constantly growing stronger, so how could he fight them? Xianxia believed that if he could bring that old Taoist within the tiny vortex here, then the old Taoist should be able to deal with the Flower Palace's founding ancestor. But the problem was that he couldn't. Do the heavens really intend to kill me? He'd been constantly trying to become stronger and stronger, and he was really quite tired now. Don't be so dispirited. I can deal with her. Meanwhile, the little girl spoke abruptly. Xianxia's eyes lit up, and then they dimmed down again. After all, the little girl couldn't even deal with 3 geezers at the 9th rank monarch realm. So how could she deal with this woman who was countless times stronger than them? You're an outsider. Meanwhile, Qianhui suddenly gazed at the little girl as she spoke, and her voice carried a trace of seriousness and confusion. The little girl turned around to gaze at Qianhui, while the scepter in her hand ceaselessly emanated a blue glow. She said, "Woman, it doesn't matter where you are or who is backing you. You'll definitely die if you kill him. Are you threatening me?" Qianhui's voice became cold. The little girl grunted coldly as she flipped her palm, and then a ball of red threads appeared in her hand. The little girl tossed it in the air, and it instantly transformed into countless red threads. Half of those red threads shot over towards Qianhui, while the other half enveloped down towards Xianxia. Xianxia was stunned but didn't resist. He just allowed all of them to enter him because he believed that the little girl wouldn't harm him. Otherwise, he would have probably died countless times by now. After it entered his body, Xianxia felt like there were some changes to his body, but it also seemed like no changes had occurred. It was a very strange feeling. Qianhui's expression changed when she saw those red threads surge towards her. Countless petals formed from energy suddenly floated out, and then they slashed down towards those threads. However, the petals were instantly transformed into nothingness upon colliding with those threads. Qianhui's expression changes drastically. She was just about to draw over the energy in the world when those red threads had transformed into a ray of red light and entered her body. Qianhui was stunned, and then she said furiously, "What exactly were those things? What have you done to me?" Xianxia gazed at the little girl as well because even he wanted to know what she was up to. The little girl spoke coldly. "These are called red threads. It's a treasure I stole from a geezer called Senior Yu. So long as 2 similar threads tie themselves within a man and a woman, then they will fall in love until they die. For the sake of making the 2 of you fall in love, I used all the red threads I had. Now, both of you should be really in love with each other. In this way, you'll definitely be unable to kill Xianxia." Xianxia finally understood what the little girl meant just now. She couldn't deal with those 3 old geezers, but she could deal with the Flower Palace's founding ancestor. Because those 3 old geezers were men, but the founding ancestor of the Flower Palace was a woman. What nonsense! Qianhui was exasperated. She waved her right hand, and then a flower petal instantly shot towards Xianxia. Xiao Tianji and the others were shocked and wanted to obstruct it, but a strand of invisible force had forcefully imprisoned them on the spot, and they weren't able to move at all. Ding Xiaoyao closed her eyes in pain while the little girl's eyelids twitched. Actually, she was just trying it as a last resort to turn this hopeless situation around, because she wasn't sure if those red threads were really that amazing. That flower petal suddenly stopped when it was just an inch away from Xianxia's forehead. The little girl heaved a sigh of relief when she saw this, and she said to herself, "That old fellow didn't lie to me. It really can make a man and a woman fall for each other. Humph, that old fellow didn't even tell me about something this fun. I'll definitely pull out his beard, hair by hair, after I get back. How could this be possible? How could this be possible?" Qianhui started to mutter as if there was something wrong with her. Right when she'd attacked Xianxia, even her main body, which was in the outer heavens, actually felt heartrending pain. That pain felt like a very close relative of hers had died, and it hurt to the point she was almost unable to catch her breath. Moreover, her main body even had the feeling that she wouldn't have any desire to continue living if that man before her were to die. This is absolutely impossible. Qian Hui's face had warped. How could she possibly fall in love with an ant at the Exalt realm? How could that be possible? It was absolutely impossible. The blazing rage within her caused the petal which was right before Xianxia's forehead to move forward by an inch, and the skin on his forehead was instantly split open before a trace of blood flowed out slowly from the cut. No! Suddenly, Qian Hui howled madly, and the petal instantly stopped. Everyone here was shocked. Qian Hui's face was covered in pain, as if she was enduring some sort of terrible torture. At this moment, she couldn't help but feel shocked, and even extremely terrified, because she actually had the absurd feeling that this man before her was someone she really loved. It was like he was the person she loved the most in her life. However, she was also very clearly aware that all of this was caused by that little girl. So long as she killed Yang Yi, then she would be able to solve everything. However, she noticed to her shock that she was actually unable to strike the killing blow. She actually felt heartrending pain when she thought about Yang Ye's death. At this moment, Yang Yi had a bitter smile on his face, because she actually seemed more and more agreeable to him. He was very clearly aware that it wasn't actually Qian Hui whom he felt was agreeable, and it was the founding ancestor of the Flower Palace, Mu Hanshan, who was within Qian Hui's body. What exactly did that little girl do? All right, stop fighting and go give birth to little monkeys. Meanwhile, the little girl spoke abruptly. It's all your fault. Meanwhile, Qian Hui suddenly raised her head and looked at the little girl with a ferocious gaze. In the next moment, a petal shot violently towards the little girl. It was too quick to the point that the little girl wasn't able to stop it at all. The little girl's face turned slightly pale while panic appeared in her eyes for the very first time. Right at this moment, a figure appeared before her and took her in his arms. No! The little girl couldn't help but let out a shrill cry that pierced the sky. Bang! The petal pierced through Yang Ye's back and was about to shoot through the little girl as well. However, Yang Yi grabbed forcefully onto it, and the support provided by his sword domain and sword intent allowed him to stop it in his grasp. However, his hands had turned red now, and while the injury on his chest was small, it was extremely strange, because that injury was slowly spreading and enlarging. The little girl was stunned, and she didn't even notice that her scepter had fallen to the ground. Yang Yi grinned and said, I said that I would take you home one day. I won't go back on my word. As soon as he finished speaking, Yang Yi fell down to the ground. At this moment, the originally thumb-sized injury on his chest had spread into the size of a fist, and it was still spreading incessantly. The little girl sat on her knees before Yang Yi. She held tightly onto Yang Ye's hands while a strand of light blue energy surged incessantly into Yang Ye's body, and she slightly choked with sobs as she said, Idiot! You idiot! You said that you would take me home so you can't die. You promised that you would take me home. You absolutely can't die. I won't allow anything to happen to you. Besides the little girl, 2 clear streams of tears had suddenly flowed down Qian Hui's face as well. There was a voice within her head that was ceaselessly saying, It's good that he's dead. You won't be shackled by anything once he's dead. Isn't that what you want? However, her tears couldn't stop flowing. The surroundings seemed to have frozen at this moment. The Beast Emperor, Founding Emperor, and the others closed their eyes slowly. They wanted to lend a hand and save Yang Yi, but they weren't able to move at all, and they could only watch as Yang Yi fell to the ground. Qian Hui suddenly said, You can't save him. He has been injured by the energy of the laws, so it's utterly impossible for you to save him. The little girl paid no attention to Qian Hui at all, and she just ceaselessly transferred the light blue energy into Yang Ye's body. However, it was in vain because the injury on Yang Ye's chest showed no signs of turning for the better, and it was growing larger and larger instead. It was almost the size of 2 fists now. Bang! Right at this moment, a black vortex suddenly appeared in the sky. Your time is up. A voice resounded from within the black vortex. Qian Hui raised her head and glanced at the black vortex before she glanced at Yang Yi, who was lying on the ground, and then her eyes narrowed. After that, a ball of blue energy emerged from the top of Qian Hui's head, and then Qian Hui slumped down to the ground. The blue ball of light floated slowly up into the air, but it suddenly stopped halfway, and then it transformed into a woman in a blue dress. Mu Hanshan was very beautiful. Her appearance was on par with Yin Xianer or even superior. She gazed at Yang Ye's unconscious body, while a trace of indescribable emotions resided within her eyes. It was an extremely complicated expression because she wanted to destroy Yang Yi, but she was struggling to make a decision because of the red threads. Your time is up. Don't blame me for being merciless if you continue to stay here. Right at this moment, the black vortex started revolving madly, and then countless strands of black energy surged ceaselessly around the black vortex, causing it to seem extremely terrifying. I'll definitely kill you if you're able to live and arrive at the outer heavens. As soon as she finished speaking, Mu Hanshan transformed into a ball of blue light that shot into the sky and vanished almost immediately. After Mu Hanshan vanished, the black vortex in the sky vanished as well, and the sky returned to normal. Besides the sky, the Beast Emperor, founding Emperor Xiao Tianji, and the others had returned to normal as well. The first thing they did was to restrain Qian Hui and Qian Nianzi. They didn't kill the two of them because they wanted to let Yang Yi make the decision. Ding Xiaoyao walked over to the little girl and asked softly, "Is he all right?" The little girl's countenance grew paler as she gazed at the injury on Yang Ye's chest, which was growing larger without end, and she had a dazed expression in her eyes. She said, "How could this be possible? I'll definitely not allow anything to happen to you. I absolutely won't allow it. Right, the primordial pagoda." The little girl's eyes lit up as she finished speaking, and then she took Yang Yi in her arms and vanished on the spot. The Beast Emperor and Founding Emperor exchanged glances, and they saw shock in each other's eyes, because even with the strengths they possessed, they were actually unable to discover where Yang Yi and the little girl went. It was like both the little girl and Yang Yi had just vanished into thin air. Are all of you aware that Yang Yi is dead? According to rumor, he slaughtered every single member of the Flower Palace, and it infuriated the founding ancestor of the Flower Palace to the point she sent her soul down to our continent. My God, it was a Saint Realm expert. It turns out that Saint Realm experts really exist in the world. Humph. Yang Yi killed too many, so he finally suffered retribution? Haha. Now, let's see how the Southern Territory will stop the mortal emperor. With the enmity between Luo Jun and Yang Yi, everyone related to Yang Yi would probably suffer calamity as well. Tisk, TSK. I heard the sword sex Su Qingshi is an extraordinary beauty. Haha. I presume Luo Jun will definitely not let her go. I wonder if Yang Yi would come back from the dead if he found out that someone else took his wife? Ha ha ha. Alas, now that Yang Yi is dead, no one will be able to stop Luo Jun's footsteps anymore. Is the human world really going to be united? The Southern Territory and even the entire human world was stirred, and countless people were spreading the news of Yang Ye's death. The exalted Han Empire. Ha ha ha. Yang Yi. To think you suffered such a fate. A Saint Realm expert. Ha ha ha. The heavens are really on my side. After he found out that Yang Yi had died at the hands of a Saint Realm expert, Luo Jun, who sat within the throne room, completely disregarded his bearing as he roared with laughter on the throne. He really hated Yang Yi to the bone. The words Yang Yi could be said to have become a knot in his heart, and he wouldn't be able to overcome it unless Yang Yi died. For the sake of killing Yang Yi with his own two hands, he hadn't hesitated and stopped at nothing to launch an expedition against the Northern Territory with the hopes of conquering it, so that he could obtain the energy from 4 territories to deal with Yang Yi. However, he hadn't imagined that Yang Yi had actually died. Congratulations, mortal emperor. All his subjects congratulated him. Luo Jun calmed his heart and said, "Send my order for Zhao Zhangfei and Zhang Meng to withdraw the forces. Head directly south and set up camp at the Ocean of Anarchy. Besides that, order the 10 regiments, the Soldier Corps, and the Royal Guard to get ready and set out at once. Besides that, notify the other clans and sects to send their elite disciples with me to the south. Kill all who disobey." Once Yang Yi had perished, there wasn't anyone left throughout the human world who was capable of stopping him. so there was no need for him to continue pretending to be courteous when dealing with the sects and clans. Mortal Emperor, aren't we being a little too impatient? Meanwhile, one of the others here spoke abruptly. Luo Jun waved his hand and said, Yang Yi is dead, so that half-saint will definitely not interfere in the matters of the Southern Territory. At that time, do you think anyone would be able to resist my exalted Han Empire once I lead my army south? So long as the Southern Territory is conquered, then conquering the Northern Territory would take half a month at most. Once that is done, the entire human world will be under my control. Luo Jun didn't conceal the excitement in his voice at all. So long as he unified the human world, he would possess the faith energy of the entire human world. At that time, Monarch Realm experts would be nothing to him. He would even be able to go against half-saints. But Yang Ye's death is only a rumor. That subject from before continued. What if he's still alive? The entire throne room fell deathly silent. Regardless of whether they were willing to admit it or not, that Exalt Realm profounder Yang Yi could threaten their exalted Han Empire. So long as Monarch Realm experts weren't able to act against him, then could anyone throughout the entire continent fight him? If he hadn't died and they sent their army south, then even if Yang Yi was unable to resist the army of the entire exalted Han Empire, unexpected events would definitely be unavoidable. At that time, the various powers of the Southern Territory which were led by Yang Yi would definitely make the exalted Han Empire pay a heavy price. If the demon race and devil race were to interfere when that happened, then what would the exalted Han Empire do? In short, if Yang Yi was dead and the army marched to the south, then many of those powers which had sided with Yang Yi would defect. Under such circumstances, it would be absolutely easy to subdue the Southern Territory. But if Yang Yi was alive, then the powers of the entire Southern Territory would be a united front, and the exalted Han Empire would have to pay an extremely heavy price to conquer it. The smile on Luo Jun's face stiffened. If Yang Yi was still alive then, he wasn't confident in being able to deal with Yang Yi even if he possessed the energy of 3 territories now. Moreover, even if he used the strength of the entire exalted Han Empire to destroy Yang Yi and Yang Ye's forces in the Southern Territory to conquer the Southern Territory. But what next? How would the exalted Han Empire deal with the devil race and demon race when it had suffered heavy losses? Right at this moment, a voice appeared in Luo Jun's mind. A Saint Realm expert descended. So Yang Yi is definitely dead. A smile appeared on Luo Jun's face when he heard this because it was from the half-saint of the exalted Han Empire. Send the order for the army to march south. After they found out about Yang Ye's death and received Luo Jun's orders, the clans and sects of the exalted Han Empire didn't hesitate to dispatch all the elites of their respective powers. Based upon preliminary estimations, just the Exalt Realm experts of those sects and clans amounted to over 5,000 in number. They hadn't held back at all, this time, because their victory was certain. The experts of the Central Territory had swarmed out completely. The Southern Territory. Father, have you really decided? Mo Qingyue gazed at the middle-aged man who was her father and the patriarch which the Mo clan had sent to meet Yang Yi. The middle-aged man laughed bitterly and said, Qingyue, Yang Yi is dead, so it's pointless for our Mo clan to remain here. Understand. They'd only come to help Yang Yi because they wanted Yang Yi to acknowledge his ancestors and return to their clan. Now that Yang Yi was dead, they naturally refused to stay behind and be buried along with the other powers in the Southern Territory. But what if he's still alive? Mo Qingyue said. You should be aware that if he is still alive, yet our Mo clan abandoned him, then it would be impossible for any reconciliation between us. With his character, our Mo clan might face annihilation then. That's impossible, the middle-aged man said. A Saint Realm expert acted against him, so it's absolutely impossible for him to be alive. Qingyue, you should understand that Luo Jun has mobilized practically all the elites of the Central Territory, so how would we resist him? We'll only be giving our lives away by staying here. Mo Qingyue took a deep breath and said, You lead the experts of the Mo clan back. I'm staying here. You. The middle-aged man was exasperated. Mo Qingyue paid no attention to him. She just turned around and left the hall. An hour later, All the members of the Mo clan besides Mo Qingyue left the southern territory. The Sword Sect. Su Qingshe gazed at Shu Xian as she asked, "You're leaving as well?" Shu Xian nodded with an apologetic expression. "I'm sorry. I've obtained news that Luo Jun is leading the elites of the entire Central Territory to the Southern Territory. We aren't able to stop him at all. I can't allow my Treant clan to be destroyed in my hands." "You intend to side with Luo Jun?" It was Lu Jianyao who spoke these words. Shu Xian said, "I'm going to the Northern Territory. There's a passageway to the Demon Territory at the northern border of the Northern Territory. We intend to give it a try, if it's really not possible." Even though she didn't explain, everyone here understood what she meant. Su Qingshe sighed lightly and waved her hand. Xianxia's fate was unknown, so the torture both she and Xiao Yushi had suffered in these 2 days was much greater than any other time. So, it felt even worse to them when all of these people were trying to leave as soon as possible. Shu Xian nodded apologetically to Su Qingshe and the others once more, and then she turned around and left. Before long, the Treant clan left. "What about the city governor's estate of your ancient domain city?" Su Qingshe gazed at Lu Jianyao as she asked this question. Lu Jianyao stated, "My father said that ancient domain city will always be standing on your side until Yang Yi is confirmed to be dead. In other words, ancient domain city would act just like the Mo clan and Treant clan had acted if Xianxia's death was confirmed." Su Qingshe understood it well. She nodded and gazed at Ding Xiaoyao. "What about you? The Ocean of Anarchy will bear the brunt of the exalted Han Empire's forces when it marches to the south. If you don't side with Luo Jun, then your dominance over the Ocean of Anarchy will probably cease to exist." Ding Xiaoyao grinned and said, "I notified the members of my Ding clan to move all our valuables to the Southern Territory and destroy all our ships 2 hours ago. Luo Jun's army wouldn't be able to arrive at the Southern Territory in a short period of time without those ships. However, it would delay him by half a month of time at most, because it wouldn't be difficult for the exalted Han Empire to obtain other ships or use the ships of others with the wealth it possesses." The reason Ding Xiaoyao had risked everything was that little girl who saved Yang Yi that day. She didn't know what it meant to be an outsider, but she was very clearly aware that the little girl was extremely terrifying. After all, even that Saint Realm expert had been affected by the little girl's red threads and was extremely afraid of her as well. Even though the chances of Yang Ye's survival was slim, she wanted to make that gamble. If she won, then she absolutely had reason to believe that the Ding clan would never be destroyed while Yang Yi was alive. If Yang Yi lived for 10,000 years, then so would the Ding clan. It was a huge gamble, because if Yang Yi really died, then the Ding clan would absolutely perish. After all, the Ding clan's actions made it impossible for the Ding clan to side with Luo Jun. Su Qingshe was slightly surprised when she heard Ding Xiaoyao. She thought that Ding Xiaoyao would leave as well, but she hadn't expected that Ding Xiaoyao wouldn't just stay. Ding Xiaoyao had even abandoned everything her clan had gained over the years to stand on Yang Ye's side. Could it be that she likes my husband as well? Such an absurd thought had appeared in Su Qingshe's mind. Ancient Domain City. After they heard the news of Yang Ye's death, the Tuan clans that were ceaselessly moving from Ancient Domain City had stopped. The Northern clan stopped for a while before it continued again. Because the ancestor of the Northern clan had personally stepped forward and said that Nku would cease to be the clan's patriarch if he didn't move the Northern clan from Ancient Domain City. The Southern clan. The Exalted Han Empire has mobilized an entire 15,000 Exalt Realm experts this time, and there are at least 6,000 plus at the 5th rank of the Exalt Realm or above. As for those at the Spirit Realm and King Realm, they are simply innumerable. Besides that, Luo Jun has dispatched a messenger who said that he's willing to disregard the betrayal of the clan if you're willing to marry him. Otherwise, our clan will cease to exist on this continent. What is your decision? The black-clothed woman spoke to Nbairu within a room. Continue moving to the Southern Territory. That was Nbairu's answer. The black-clothed woman hesitated for a moment before she said, "Bairu, do you think the Southern Territory has any chance? Even if Yang Yi isn't dead, what would he be able to do when facing over 10,000 Exalt Realm experts and countless profounders at the Spirit Realm and King Realm? Unbiru stood up and said, "Do you think he would fulfill his past promise to us if we returned to Luo Jun's side right now? He wouldn't. The only reason he raised such conditions were none other than to obtain Mayan clan and put on a show for everyone else. It's to show the Southern Territory that he's magnanimous and would forgive them. But the reality of the situation is that we'll have no choice but to be cannon fodder upon siding with him again. Even if he is able to unite the continent in the future, we'll only be suppressed and even destroyed by him." After she finished speaking, Anbiru walked towards the door, and she stopped upon arriving before the door. She said, "No one likes to be betrayed. Luo Jun isn't a broad-minded person. There's also another reason why he has raised such conditions, and it's because he intends to take revenge on me. There's one more thing you have to realize, Aunt. This is our last chance to choose sides, and the slightest mistake would really cause our southern and clan to be annihilated." The black-clothed woman sighed lightly as she watched Anbiru leave. The primordial pagoda. At this moment, Yang Yi was really in quite bad shape. That injury on his chest was filled with the mysterious energy of the laws. Even if the Greenwood spirit was repairing it incessantly, it was completely useless, and he would have probably died by now if it wasn't for the primordial violet energy within him. However, the primordial violet energy within him wasn't in its truest form. So, it could only delay the growth of his injury but couldn't heal it. After she brought Yang Yi into the primordial pagoda, she held her scepter in her hand while she spoke in a tongue that didn't belong to profounder continent. The scepter in her hand gradually emanated dazzling and resplendent blue light before the energy within the entire first level of the primordial pagoda started surging madly towards Yang Yi. It wasn't long before the little girl was pleasantly surprised to notice that the enormous injury on Yang Ye's chest was actually starting to gradually heal as the energy surged madly into him. This princess was right. That woman's law energy was only able to affect that world. The world within the primordial pagoda has its own laws, and they instinctively reject the laws of the outside world, so her law energy has lost its effect here. Haha! This princess is such a genius. The usual icy coldness on the little girl's face had vanished when she saw the injury on Yang Ye's chest healing slowly, and her face was covered in a brilliant smile instead. The energy in the surroundings didn't stop and started to surge towards Yang Yi in an even larger volume. However, the little girl's countenance had become slightly pale. Bang! A terrifying aura suddenly erupted from Yang Yi, the fourth rank of the Exalt realm. As the unending energy repaired his body, Yang Yi had attained the fourth rank of the Exalt realm as well. However, that wasn't the end of it. The little noticed that the energy in an area of 500 kilometers around Yang Yi was gradually being exhausted. She waved her hand, and the extreme-grade energy stones Yang Yi possessed appeared here before over 30,000 of them started to burn into flames and transformed into strands of energy which surged into Yang Ye's body. Pooh! A mouthful of blood sprayed from the little girl's mouth. However, she didn't give up and continued chanting in that mysterious tongue. Before long, almost 90% of that pile of extreme-grade energy stones had been burnt into ashes. The energy here grew ceaselessly in volume while Yang Yi seemed like a terrifying vortex which caused the unending energy in the surroundings to surge into him. At the same time, Yang Ye's aura gradually grew more and more terrifying. Bang! An aura that was 2 times more terrifying than before erupted from within Yang Yi. This aura swept out towards the surroundings like a gale, and it instantly caused ripples to undulate throughout the space in the surroundings. The 5th rank of the Exalt realm. The blue light emanated by the little girl's scepter gradually dispersed while she slowly fell from midair, but a pair or arms grabbed her when she was just about to crash to the ground. Yang Yi asked in a slightly anxious tone as he gazed at the little girl's pale countenance. "Are you all right?" Yang Yi hadn't noticed something at this moment, and that was that the little girl's body was material and not ethereal as it had been in the past. The little girl shook her head and said, "I executed a forbidden technique, so I'll have to fall into deep slumber for some time. This is all that I can do for you. You have to understand that you're still too weak. If you're weak, then you're bound to be bullied and suffer unfair treatment. I know you've been working very hard, but you have to work even harder. Understand?" Yang Yi nodded as he stretched out his hand to wipe off the blood on the corner of her mouth. The little girl frowned slightly because she'd never been touched like that by another person. However, when she noticed the gentle emotions in Yang Ye's eyes, her brows couldn't help but ease up. Right at this moment, a ray of violet light flashed before the violet mink appeared here. The violet mink instantly pounced into Yang Ye's arms and ceaselessly rubbed her head against his chest. As if she'd thought of something, she turned around and glared angrily at the little girl because the little girl had confined her earlier, causing her to be unable to help Yang Yi and have no choice but to watch as Yang Yi was injured by that petal. Yang Yi rubbed the little fellow's head and said, "She did it for your own good. It would be completely meaningless for you to come out there under such circumstances. Understand?" The little fellow instantly revealed an aggrieved expression. Yang Yi kissed her on the forehead and said, "I know you were concerned about me, but I would definitely go mad if anything were to happen to you. You're more important than my life to me, so you absolutely can't allow anything to happen to you. Understand?" The little girl grunted coldly in a soft voice and seemed to be quite displeased. However, her voice was very soft, so both Yang Yi and the little fellow hadn't noticed it. "No!" Suddenly, the little fellow opened her mouth and spoke. Her voice was very pleasant, like the melodious cry of a bird. After she said that, the little fellow blinked before she jumped into Yang Ye's arms while ceaselessly hitting Yang Yi with her little claws. It was like she was embarrassed. Yang Yi was completely stunned, and he just stared blankly at the little fellow. He hadn't imagined that the little fellow could actually speak now. In other words, the little fellow has succeeded in receiving the inheritance and can take human form? Cough! Right at this moment, the little girl suddenly coughed lightly. Yang Yi hurriedly looked over and saw the little girl had an exhausted expression on her face. Moreover, it seemed that it was almost impossible for her to keep her eyes open anymore. Yang Yi was shocked in his heart and hurriedly asked, "Are you all right?" The little girl glanced at him and said, "I'm going to fall into deep sleep, and I might have to sleep for a few hundred years." "What?" Yang Yi was surprised. "A few hundred years?" The little girl said, "I've exhausted too much of my core strength, so this is the best outcome I could hope for. The only way to help me awaken quickly is to gain access to the second level of the primordial pagoda and give me a rejuvenation pill from there. Otherwise, I might really have to sleep for a few hundred years. I'll access the second level as soon as possible so you can awaken earlier. I guarantee that." Yang Yi forced out a smile as he said, "After all, I promised that I would take you home." The little girl took a deep and long glance at Yang Yi before she closed her eyes. Yang Yi couldn't help but feel overwhelmed by sadness when he saw the little girl in such a weak state. "I vow to become strong." Yang Ye's voice rumbled like a thunderclap throughout the first level of the pagoda. "Ha ha ha! No one will be able to threaten this ancestor from now onward. Ha ha ha!" At the ghost sect of the Southern Territory, the corpse ancestor was madly absorbing the blood and baleful energy throughout the ghost sect. The corpses of a few tens of thousands of disciples of the ghost sect were lying on the ground all around him, and their blood was still warm. Obviously, they just died not too long ago. When Yang Yi had attacked the Flower Palace and its founding ancestor had shown herself that day, he'd left without making a sound. In the end, he was absolutely overjoyed when he heard that Yang Yi had been killed by the Flower Palace's founding ancestor. Because once Yang Yi was dead, then no one could control him anymore, and he just had to absorb the blood and baleful energy from 100 million people in order to recover 80% of the strength he once possessed. Once he recovered 80% of his past strength, then he could definitely sweep through the entire continent when it was a world without any Saint Realm experts. At that time, he could devour the baleful energy and blood from all the humans, devils, and demons of the entire continent. Just thinking about such a scene caused the corpse ancestor to be unable to help but roar complacently with laughter. Ah! Suddenly, a shrill cry resounded from the corpse ancestor's mouth. He turned around to look towards the north, and his voice contained monstrous rage and bewilderment. "How could this be possible? How could you possibly be alive?" Ah! As soon as he finished speaking, another shrill cry had resounded from him. "You bastard! I'll kill Ah! Big brother. Big brother. Stop doing that with the soul control tablet. I'm coming. I'm coming. Corpse Ancestor transformed into a red ray of light that flashed explosively towards the north. The Sword Sect. Yang Yi arrived at the Sword Sect without making a song. The worry in Su Qingshi and Xiao Yushi's hearts had finally eased up when they saw that he was fine. They could be said to have suffered tremendous torture throughout this period of time. And it was especially so for Su Qingshi because she was about to give birth soon. Yang Yi listened silently as Su Qingshi told him about everything that had occurred throughout these 2 days. Yang Ye's face was very calm when he heard the Mo clan had left because it was entirely within his expectations. There were no feelings between him and the Mo clan at all, and the reason they'd come to help him was none other than because of his potential and the presence of his master who was at the half-saint realm. All they wanted was to benefit from being associated with him. So, it was very understandable that they'd left when they found out that he would definitely die. However, he hadn't expected that the Treant clan had left as well, and it was Ding Xiaoyao, a woman who pursued nothing but gains, had actually stayed behind and even moved the entire Ding clan to the southern territory. At this moment, many clans, small sects, and various other powers of the southern territory are prepared to side with Luo Jun. So long as Luo Jun steps foot onto the southern territory's soil, then there would probably be countless powers that would go to greet him. The current situation in the southern territory is very bad for all of us. Su Qingshi frowned. Yang Yi pulled Su Qingshi into his arms, and then he placed his hand on her bulging tummy. Su Qingshi blushed but didn't resist. On the other hand, a wisp of envy flashed through the depths of Xiao Yushi's eyes as she gazed at Su Qingshi's bulging tummy. Yang Yi rubbed her tummy lightly and said in a gentle voice, "Don't bother about all of this. Just leave it all to me. You concentrate on taking care of our baby that you're carrying. Understand?" Su Qingshi nodded. Actually, she didn't want to pay any attention to the matters of the Sword Sect once she'd become pregnant. However, no one would be able to do it besides her, so she had no choice. But it was different not because Yang Yi was here, and all of that would naturally become his responsibility. Yang Yi gazed at Xiao Yushi and grinned before he gestured to her. Xiao Yushi hesitated for a moment before she walked over to Yang Ye's side. Yang Yi took her hand and smiled. "Do you want a child as well?" Xiao Yushi blushed, and she hesitated for a moment before she nodded in an almost imperceptible manner. "Then we have to work hard." Yang Yi roared with laughter and hugged them tightly. After 2 days of baby-making efforts, Yang Yi left for Death Abyss with Corpse Ancestor. "Kid, I'll wait for you up here." Corpse Ancestor spoke abruptly on the ground above Death Abyss. Yang Yi hesitated for a moment before he nodded. He knew that this fellow was afraid of Elder Mu. Even though Corpse Ancestor's body was comparable to the body of a half-saint, Elder Mu was a true half-saint, so it was normal for this fellow to be afraid. As if he knew what Yang Yi was thinking, Corpse Ancestor grunted coldly and said, "Kid, I admit that he's stronger than me now, but if it were all those years ago, I could kill a bunch of experts like him with a wave of my hand." Yang Yi pursed his lips and paid no further attention to Corpse Ancestor. He just leaped down into Death Abyss. Before the cottage. "I never expected that some Saint Realm experts of legend aren't dead, and they went to another world instead. So, there's another world beyond our own. I really want to go have a look." Elder Mu sat cross-legged on the ground as he muttered softly. At this moment, Elder Mu seemed even older than he was in the past. His hair had turned completely snow-white, and his back seemed to be even more hunched. Yang Yi couldn't help but feel really sad when he saw Elder Mu in such a state, because while the old man was one of the supreme experts of this world, the old man lived a lonely life. "You know." Elder Mu gazed at Yang Yi and said, "I'd thought that even if my strength were inferior to a Saint Realm expert, it should be sufficient for me to exchange a few blows with one. But I never imagined that just the soul of a Saint Realm expert would be capable of rendering me completely helpless. Aha, just a soul. Even though she had her main body to rely on, it still only possessed less than 1% of her full strength. All below the Saint Realm really are ants." Yang Ye's heart shook. He hadn't imagined that Mu Hanshan's strength was actually that terrifying. Wait, Yang Yi suddenly thought of something. St. Lu Yun was just a soul as well. But why was the gap between him and Mu Hanshan so huge? It wasn't long before Yang Yi figured it out. Mu Hanshan was a complete Saint Realm expert who still had her main body, so her soul was still the soul of a Saint Realm expert. On the other hand, Saint Lu Yun's body had been destroyed, and his cultivation had declined. Strictly speaking, his soul couldn't be considered as a soul of a Saint Realm expert. Coupled with the fact that his soul had suffered a heavy injury, Saint Lu Yun couldn't compare to Mu Hanshan at all. Meanwhile, Elder Mu suddenly asked, "Was that little girl the equipment spirit of that divine treasure?" Yang Yi shook his head and said, "She isn't. She's a person from another world, and she only arrived at our world due to certain reasons." Elder Mu fell silent. Yang Yi said, "Elder Mu, I came to see you because I want to borrow some swords from you." After all the Dao artifacts he possessed had been destroyed after he executed the Heavenrend, and it really made Yang Ye's heart ache. Now, he had no more Dao artifacts left. In other words, he wouldn't be able to execute Heavenrend anymore. So, he had no choice but to ask Elder Mu for more swords. Elder Mu laughed bitterly when he heard this and said, "Kid, do you think Dao artifacts are rocks that you can just grab from the side of the road? Not to mention me, even the exalted Han Empire can't sustain your usage of Dao artifacts." Yang Yi rubbed his nose and spoke in a slightly helpless tone. "I can't help it." His heart was still bleeding from his loss of Void Flash and Lag. After all, those two swords were outstanding weapons, but they were gone just like that. Elder Mu gestured with his right hand, and then a ray of white light shot out from within the cottage before transforming into a pitch-black ancient sword. The ancient sword's make wasn't really great as it was covered in holes. As for its edge, there wasn't one. It actually seemed more like a ruler. "What's this?" Yang Yi was astounded. This sword is called the Sword Ruler. According to legend, it was forged by condensing a star that had fallen from the sky. I don't know if the legend is true, but this sword really is extremely heavy. Ordinary Exalt Realm experts aren't able to pick it up at all, and that was why I didn't give it to you in the past. While your current physical body is still inferior to some Monarch Realm experts, it isn't much inferior, so you can give it a try," said Elder Mu. Yang Yi nodded, and then he stretched out his hand to take the sword ruler. His hand suddenly moved over 30 centimeters down as soon as he took the sword ruler in his hand, and the ground where Yang Yi stood had actually collapsed instantaneously. Yang Ye's expression changed, and he hurriedly exerted his strength to hold it firmly. A wisp of surprise flashed through his eyes as he gazed at the sword in his hand, and he said, "Elder Mu, this sword is truly heavy. If I combine it with my physical strength, I think I should be able to rely on my physical strength alone to smash an Exalt Realm expert to death with a single swing of it. But this sword is really ugly. Moreover, it's much more inferior when compared to Void Flash and Lag." "You don't want it?" Elder Mu nodded and said, "Then give it back to me. I only have that one last Dao artifact, and it just happens to work well for chopping wood." "Chopping wood?" The corners of Yang Ye's mouth twitched. He hurriedly put the ancient sword away and said, "Thank you for the sword, Elder Mu. But, do you have more? After all, my sword techniques really consume swords, and just one isn't enough." Elder Mu was at a loss for whether to laugh or cry, and he said, "Kid, do you really think Dao artifacts are common like cabbage? All of these that I've given you are Dao artifacts that I collected over the course of 10,000 plus years. To tell you the truth, this sword is my last Dao artifact. So, don't utilize that Heavenrend drawing technique of yours in the future. It's absolutely wasteful." "Wasteful?" Yang Yi laughed bitterly. Actually, he felt the same way, because it destroyed a Dao artifact every single time that he utilized it. How many Dao artifacts had he destroyed until now? However, he really couldn't help it because other ordinary swords weren't just unable to be utilized to execute Heavenrend, they couldn't even be sheathed within the ancient sheath. So, he could only blame the ancient sheath for being too picky. "Alright, go on. Quickly kill that fellow, Luo Jun, and then work hard on your cultivation and strive to attain the monarch realm as soon as possible. Elder Mu turned around and entered the cottage after he finished speaking. Right at this moment, a ray of light flashed, and then the sword spirit of the ancient sheath appeared before Yang Yi. Yang Yi was stunned. What's she doing out here? The sword spirit remained silent for a moment before she said, "Let's go look for my other half." Your other half? Yang Yi hadn't been able to react to the meaning behind her words. She said, "The sword of the ancient sheath. The ancient sheath's sword?" Yang Yi frowned and said, "Didn't you say that I was too weak and unable to take control of it at all?" He'd been curious about that mysterious sword a very long time ago. Unfortunately, the sword spirit was extremely stubborn and utterly refused to reveal anything to him. She merely said that his strength was too weak, really too weak. The sword spirit said, "You're really too weak, but your physical strength is barely sufficient. If it were in the past, I would wait for you to attain the monarch realm before taking you to seek my main body. But I can't wait any longer now." She can't wait? Yang Ye's face darkened as he said, "Hey, don't get me killed. You said that even the Sword Sect's founding ancestor wasn't able to obtain it all those years ago, yet you want me to go get it now? Tell me the truth. Are you trying to get me killed?" Even though he wanted that sword because she'd said that even the mortal emperor sword couldn't compare to it at all, he wanted to obtain it under the preconditions that he possessed absolute strength and confidence in being successful. "Aren't I going to give my life away if I went for it now?" Yang Ye's gaze grew even more hostile as he gazed at her. "The heavens intend to destroy you," said the sword spirit. Yang Yi nodded and said, "I know, but what does that have to do with that sword? Don't you want to slash the heavens apart?" The sword spirit's voice was actually filled with temptation. "So long as you obtained my main body and executed Heavenrend, then you'll definitely be able to destroy the quintessence of the heavens here. In that way, you would have destroyed the source of Luo Jun's strength." Yang Yi grew even more vigilant. "Is she trying to get me killed? But it doesn't seem like that. If she wanted to kill me, she had many chances in the past, like when I executed Heavenrend that day. I would have definitely died if she caused trouble for me then. But if she doesn't want to get me killed, then why is she acting so impatient now? What exactly has happened?" Yang Yi spoke in a low voice. She intended to say something, but Yang Yi waved his hand and said, "I hope you tell me the truth. If you are facing some problem and I have the strength to help, then I'll definitely help you. However, I'm going to flare up if you are trying to deceive me and send me to my death." The sword spirit's lips moved a little before she sighed softly in the end. That saint of the flower palace severely damaged the balance of this world when she descended here. The will of the heaven Tao here has been damaged by her arrival in this world, and many things might be emerging soon. Be a little clearer. Yang Yi frowned. His intuition told him that something bad was about to happen. My main body is called the Sword Precursor, and it was born from within the primal chaos. In other words, it was born before this world had been completely formed. I'm the first sword of this world, and I was forged from the chaotic yin and yang energy of this world. Thus, I'm called the Sword Precursor. 100,000 years ago, a group of heaven-defying defiant profounders appeared in this world. They'd arrived here from a different world, and their sole intent was to seize the chaotic energy and spirit energy of every single world. So this world was in unprecedented danger. Because once the chaotic energy and spirit energy in the world were to vanish completely, then the world would be destroyed in a very short period of time. The sword spirit spoke softly. My second master, some human profounders, the devil race, demon race, and many other races, including some which hadn't vanished at that time, answered the summons of the will of the heaven Tao, and they joined forces against the defiant profounders. After a brutal battle that lasted for over 10,000 years, the defiant profounders had practically vanished from the continent. Did they all die? Asked Yang Yi. She shook her head and said, They couldn't be killed. Some of the peerless experts amongst them had cultivated their bodies and souls to an undying state. Not a single person in our world. No, I should say that not even the will of the heaven Tao of our world was able to annihilate them. Perhaps the experts from the world that little girl comes from might be able to accomplish it. Since they aren't dead, are you telling me that they are still in our world? Yang Yi gulped down a mouthful of saliva while a very bad feeling arose within him. She nodded and said, "My second master joined forces with countless experts of this continent, and the will of the heaven Tao to barely suppress them in the demon catacombs. But their forces paid a heavy price to accomplish that. Countless experts perished, and my second master perished not too long after from the heavy injuries he'd suffered during the battles." "What does that have to do with you?" asked Yang Yi. She gazed at him and said, "Even if countless experts joined forces at that time, and even the will of the heaven Tao assisted them, they were still unable to fully suppress those defiant profounders. So, my master stabbed my main body into the demon catacombs and utilized me as a link to suppress those defiant profounders with the hell of the will of the heaven Tao and the martial will of countless experts. Now, the seal has loosened." Yang Ye's eyelids twitched as he said, "Don't tell me that the defiant profounders are about to burst out of the seal." She said, "I don't know if they are, but I feel an unprecedented feeling of danger. So many years have passed, and this world is getting weaker while its experts are getting fewer. If there's nobody to continue strengthening the seal, then it would be very normal for it to loosen." "How strong are they?" asked Yang Yi. She replied, "The weakest amongst them are at the half-saint realm." "How many are there?" "Numerous." Yang Yi gasped. "How would we stop them if those fellows escape?" The sword spirit answered, "Do you know why a Nanjing and Luo Jun have appeared in this era? Because the world has sensed danger as well, and it needs to reseal those defiant profounders. That's why a Nanjing and Luo Jun have been born. The reason their genius is so monstrous is because they enjoy the karmic luck of this world. However, the heavens probably never imagined that you would appear in this world." "What does it have to do with me?" Yang Yi spoke with displeasure. "Because your presence makes it very difficult for Luo Jun to unify the continent. That's why the heavens intend to destroy you. Your very existence obstructs Luo Jun's growth. If he can't unify the continent and gather the experts of the entire continent, then the defiant profounders will definitely awaken once more. At that time, this world and everyone within it will die," said the sword spirit. Yang Yi spoke in a slightly displeased tone. "Hey, you make it seem like I'm a sinner of this entire world. You should get your facts straight. It's they who want to kill me. Could it be that only they can kill me, yet I can't resist?" She fell silent for a short while before she said, "All of you should work together." Yang Yi laughed coldly and said, "Do you think that's possible? This world might really be destroyed if you continue obstructing Luo Jun," said the sword spirit. Yang Yi replied, "What does that have to do with me? It isn't I who destroyed it in the end. All I know is that I'll kill anyone who intends to kill me. If the heavens refuse to tolerate my existence, then even if the defiant profounders don't destroy it, I'll destroy it myself once I have sufficient strength." "You!" She was speechless. Yang Yi glanced at her and said, "If I'm not wrong, you aren't a sword spirit who regards all living beings in this world as part of your responsibility, right? After all, if you were, then you wouldn't have chosen me but Luo Jun, right?" The sword spirit fell silent for a moment before she said, "I'm suppressing those defiant profounders, but aren't they restraining me at the same time? 100,000 years. My main body has been trapped there for 100,000 years." When she spoke up to this point, her voice carried monstrous resentment and rage. 100,000 years. Yang Yi gasped. How terrifying would it be to be restrained at the same spot for 100,000 years? No wonder she had that much resentment. A normal person would have probably gone mad and possess a warped personality after being restrained for 100,000 years, right? I felt the situation was bad at that time, but I couldn't do anything because both my master and those experts weren't existences that I could resist. So, I had no other choice but to secretly separate a portion of my consciousness and store it within my sheath. After that, I fled the demon catacombs with the hope of finding a way to rescue my main body. But I never imagined that this would go on for 100,000 years, said the sword spirit. Yang Yi pondered deeply for a moment before he said, "Firstly, you really have my sympathies. However, you should be clearly aware that even the Sword Sect's founding ancestor hadn't been able to retrieve your main body. Don't you think that sending me over would be equivalent to sending me to my death? You've helped me a great deal, and I'm not an ungrateful person. I'll definitely rescue your main body if I possess sufficient strength in the future. Alright? My time is running out. The sword spirit spoke in a low voice. Once those defiant profounders break through the seal, the first thing they do would definitely be to destroy my main body's consciousness. At that time, I wouldn't be myself anymore. Xianxia laughed bitterly and said, "You have to understand that we'll be walking towards our graves if we head over there right now." The sword spirit shook her head and said, "When I said that the Sword Sect's founding ancestor was unable to save me, I was lying to you. It wasn't that he couldn't save me, he chose not to. Because if he were to have saved me all those years ago, then the seal would have definitely collapsed and countless defiant profounders would have swarmed out from within it. At that time, even he wasn't able to stop those defiant profounders, so he'd chosen not to rescue me. So that was why." Xianxia fell silent for a long time before he said, "Even if we do save your main body, what would we do about those defiant profounders? How would I deal with them? Truthfully speaking, I really want to help you if I can because helping you is equivalent to helping me. However, you should be aware that I can't even go against Monarch Realm experts, let alone half-saints. But the weakest amongst them are at the half-saint realm." She said, "In the past, I hoped that you would grow completely into an expert before you head over to rescue my main body. But time is really running out now. Even if you don't save my main body, those defiant profounders will still emerge from the seal. The only difference is that you'll have a chance to obtain my main body if we head over there. Conversely, I would vanish from the face of this world if we don't rescue my main body, while those defiant profounders would still emerge from within the seal. Looks like I have no other choice." Xianxia laughed bitterly. "We have to do it as soon as possible," said the sword spirit in a low voice. Xianxia nodded. Xianxia had just left Death Abyss when he received a transmission talisman from Xianxia. A wisp of ghastly killing intent arose in Xianxia's eyes when he looked through it because Luo Jun had actually received assistance from the oceanic clans in the Ocean of Anarchy. So, Luo Jun's army had already landed on the other side of the Ocean of Anarchy, and the army had arrived before Ancient Domain City. At this moment, Ancient Domain City was in a state of emergency. Xianxia's figure flashed and rushed towards Ancient Domain City with Corpse Ancestor. The reason he hadn't returned to the Southern Territory was because Ding Xiaoyao had already ordered the Southern Territory's army to gather and rush to Ancient Domain City once she found out that Luo Jun's army had arrived at the Southern Territory. Of course, this decision was supported by both the Founding Emperor and Beast Emperor. At this moment, practically all the elites of the Southern Territory were rushing towards Ancient Domain City, especially the Grand Myriad Mountains. When he flew past the Grand Myriad Mountains, Xianxia noticed that a dense wave of dark beasts were rushing towards Ancient Domain City. The mountains were quaking. In the beginning, the Founding Emperor and Beast Emperor weren't that resolved to fight the Exalted Han Empire until the death because the gap between both sides was truly too huge. Perhaps they would have a chance if they used the Grand Myriad Mountains as the border that they protected with all their strength. However, the Southern Territory didn't have any chance at success if it was a frontal collision between the two armies. However, they didn't hesitate any longer when they heard that Xianxia was alive and had even attained the 5th rank of the Exalt Realm. Forcefully protecting a border would fail sooner or later, but fighting a battle until death would provide them with a chance at success. At the very least, they could make the Exalted Han Empire pay a horrible price even if they failed. Ancient Domain City. It was a natural barrier before the Southern Territory, and Luo Jun's army would have to travel through a detour of at least 5,000 kilometers through the east or west of the city in order to bypass it and arrive at the Southern Territory. But Luo Jun wouldn't choose any one of them no matter what because both of them were covered in mountains that towered into the sky, all sorts of rough terrain, and countless dangerous swamps. Besides Exalt Realm experts, even Spirit Realm experts wouldn't be able to pass through from there. So, he could only pass through Ancient Domain City, the city governor's estate of Ancient Domain City. Xianxia from the Grand Qin Empire, Xiao Yushi and Ding Xiaoyao from the Sword Sect, and a rugged and robust man from the Dark Beast Empire were seated within the room. Besides them, Lu Jianyao was representing the city governor's estate. Based on our preliminary estimations, the Exalted Han Empire has brought at least 15,000 Exalt Realm experts, around 600,000 Spirit Realm experts, and countless Profounders at the King Realm. They are practically all the elites of the Central Territory. Ding Xiaoyao spoke slowly. On the other hand, we have less than 5,000 Exalt Realm experts in total. As for Spirit Realm experts, we only have around 200,000, whereas the amount of King Realm Profounders we possess don't even amount to 5% of the King Realm experts possessed by the Exalted Han Empire. The expressions of everyone in this room became slightly unsightly when they heard Ding Xiaoyao because the gap in their strengths was truly too huge. Ding Xiaoyao said, "However, we have such a natural barrier like Ancient Domain City, so we can persist for some time if we only defend and avoid attacking. However, all of you should be aware that staying on the defense isn't a long-term plan. We have to repulse Luo Jun over and over again. So long as that continues for a long time, then those sects and clans of the Central Territory would definitely arouse the intent to retreat, and our opportunity would appear when there's a divergence of opinion amongst them." Xianxia said, "But the problem is whether we can defend the city until that happens." Ding Xiaoyao grinned and said, "That isn't difficult. The difficult part is how to avoid any divergence of opinion amongst us. I believe that all the powers that you respectively represent have resolved to fight the Exalted Han Empire until the death. However, I'd like to know if those clans and smaller sects which have sided with you feel the same." The robust man from the Dark Beast Empire stated, "There are no treacherous clans amongst the Dark Beasts of my Dark Beast Empire." The others remained silent, especially Xianxia. There were countless clans and small powers that had sought the Grand Qin Empire's protector. Even though they declared their support for the empire now, no one could guarantee that their decision wouldn't change. Xianxia wasn't confident in them at all, because the Grand Qin Empire had already secretly annihilated some clans that had ill intent towards the empire. Meanwhile, Ding Xiaoyao said, "Besides going against the Exalted Han Empire, we have to be careful of the powers on our side as well. Because once Luo Jun is able to attack us from both the inside and outside, then it would definitely be a calamity for us. Do all of you think that Luo Jun will spare us if he breaks through the city? He wouldn't, because the entire human world would be under his command once he kills us. So, please be careful of those clans and powers that have joined your side. Once you notice that they have ill intent, then please annihilate them regardless of whether you have sufficient proof. That would probably cause many clans and powers to panic and arouse aversion by doing that." Xianxia frowned. "We're in harsh times now, so we can only use harsh methods," said Ding Xiaoyao. Right at this moment, a fluctuation appeared in the space before her, and then Ding Xiaoyao frowned. "What's wrong?" asked Xianxia. Ding Xiaoyao stood up, looked towards the north, and said in a heavy voice, "According to a report from our scouts, 2 men and 1 woman wearing strange clothes appeared amidst Luo Jun's army, and then Luo Jun's army stopped 50 m away from the city." "What do you mean?" asked Lu Jianyao. Ding Xiaoyao said, "They did a single thing after they arrived amidst Luo Jun's army. They killed over a dozen Exalt Realm experts within the army." "That's a good thing," Lu Jianyao said. "It proves that they are his enemies." Ding Xiaoyao shook her head and said, "Luo Jun didn't dare counterattack after they killed those Exalt Realm experts, and he even invited them into his dwellings. According to the reports from our scouts, they are wearing very strange clothing, and they don't seem to be clothes from any one of the territories throughout Profounder Continent. Moreover, the 3 of them were extremely arrogant. Alas, I hope other issues don't arise because of this." Luo Jun's dwellings. "You're the mortal emperor of this era?" A man whose clothes were covered in all sorts of strange symbols gazed at Luo Jun as he spoke. Another man with similar clothing and a woman who wore a crystal blue dress were standing by his side. "How audacious!" Meanwhile, a soldier within Luo Jun's dwellings shouted furiously. However, he hadn't even finished speaking when that man flicked his finger, and then a strange symbol shot forward. That soldier's expression changed, and he hurriedly created a spatial barrier before himself. However, that symbol wasn't affected by the spatial barrier at all, and it directly shot into his body. Bang! That fifth-rank Exalt Realm expert's body suddenly exploded apart, and then the symbol flew back into the man's hand. The expressions of everyone here changed while Luo Jun's expression grew unsightly to the extreme. The reason he'd allowed them to enter his dwellings was because he felt that they were extremely strong and mysterious, so he wanted to recruit them. But he hadn't expected that they would completely disregard him and kill his subordinates right before him. Right when everyone within here was about to swarm that group of 3 experts, the man withdrew a command token and shook it before Luo Jun's eyes. Luo Jun frowned, and then he spoke with a ferocious voice upon laying eyes on the command token. No one can save all of you. However, Luo Tian suddenly appeared before them, and he revealed a complicated and shocked expression when he saw the command token. He said, "The Heaven Dao command token. I never expected that it actually exists. All of you are from the hallowed grounds." Finally, someone who isn't ignorant. Even if he was facing a 9th-rank Monarch Realm expert, the young man didn't reveal even a trace of respect on his face. Moreover, Luo Tian didn't mind it at all. Conversely, he revealed an amiable smile when he confirmed the young man's origins. The faces of Luo Jun and the others fell when they witnessed this scene. What exactly is their background? Why have you emerged into this world?" asked Luo Tian. The young man said, "The forceful descent of a Saint Realm expert into this world caused the seal on the Defiant Profounders to loosen. So, my hallowed grounds urgently requires a huge number of experts to assist us in strengthening the seal. We weren't really hopeful because the spirit energy in this world was already dry to such an extent, but I never imagined that someone in this world actually inherited the position of Mortal Emperor. The Mortal Emperor, the Mortal Emperor Sword, the Mortal Emperor Seal, and the karmic luck of the world are very useful. The seal has loosened." Luo Tian's expression changed as he said, "Is that true?" The young man said, "Of course. Otherwise, why would we come to this place?" As he spoke, he gazed at Luo Jun and said, "Since you're the Mortal Emperor, then immediately summon all the experts of the human race at the Exalt Realm and above, and then immediately follow us to the hallowed grounds. We've already sent our forces to contact the demon race, devil race, and nether race. I believe that they'll be heading to the demon catacombs soon." Luo Jun frowned and gazed at Luo Tian. Luo Tian said in a heavy voice, "Over 100,000 years ago, a group of defiant profounders appeared on the continent, and they almost destroyed our world. At that time, a group of experts joined forces and were finally able to suppress those defiant profounders at a place called the Demon Catacombs. After that, the descendants of those experts resided there and guarded the defiant profounders for generations." When he spoke up to this point, Luo Tian paused for a moment before he said, "At that time, all the inhabitants of the continent agreed that once the Heaven Dao command token was produced, then all powers and races had to listen to its holder's commands. Otherwise, they would be regarded as traitors, and the hallowed grounds would be allowed to descend into our world and annihilate that traitor. So there was another unknown power on the continent." Luo Jun felt quite uncomfortable in his heart. He'd thought that the exalted Han Empire was practically like an extraordinary overlord throughout the continent, but never had he imagined that a place called the Hallowed Grounds existed on the continent. Moreover, based on how his ancestor was acting, the Hallowed Grounds' strength was probably superior to the exalted Han Empire. How could he, the dignified mortal emperor, be willing to obey the orders of others? Luo Jun was just about to refuse when Luo Tian's voice suddenly resounded within his mind. "I know that you're unwilling. However, not to mention that our exalted Han Empire is unable to resist the Hallowed Grounds, we would probably be unable to resist them even if we joined forces with the demon race and devil race. Do you know why our exalted Han Empire had been able to repulse the Sword Sect's founding ancestor all those years ago? It wasn't because of the experts of our empire, and it was because someone from the Hallowed Grounds stepped forward to stop him. So the Sword Sect's founding ancestor gave the Hallowed Grounds face and didn't annihilate my exalted Han Empire." Luo Jun was shocked. He's always thought that the Sword Sect's founding ancestor had retreated because he wasn't a match for the exalted Han Empire, but he'd never imagined that it was actually because of the Hallowed Grounds. It's a force that even the Sword Sect's founding ancestor feared. How terrifying is it exactly? Meanwhile, the young man gazed at Luo Jun and said, "Time is of the essence. We don't have much time to waste. Quickly gather all the Exalt Realm experts of the human world and then head to the hallowed grounds with us. You possess the Mortal Emperor Sword, Mortal Emperor Seal, and can even converge the faith energy of the human world. That's extremely useful to us." Meanwhile, Luo Tian said, "Hallowed envoys? It isn't that we refuse to cooperate, but I'm afraid that we're unable to do so." The young man frowned and said, "What do you mean?" Luo Tian gazed at Luo Jun, and Luo Jun understood his intentions. He immediately said, "I'm quite embarrassed to say that while I'm the Mortal Emperor, I'm unable to command the entire human world for now. For example, this southern territory is resisting my exalted Han Empire right now, and it intends to fight my empire until the end. So, I can only gather the Exalt Realm experts of my exalted Han Empire at most. I'm powerless to command the southern territory." The powers of the southern territory clearly intended to fight him to the end. Even though he wasn't afraid of them, he might not need to waste a single soldier to conquer the southern territory with the help of the hallowed grounds. So, a smile couldn't help but arise on the corners of Luo Jun's mouth. The young man frowned. He hadn't expected that the Mortal Emperor had actually not unified the human world. A Mortal Emperor without the faith energy of the entire human world wasn't very useful to the hallowed grounds. Isn't that very easy to resolve? Meanwhile, the other man who held a spear in his hand said, "Your army is already here, so just march over and crush them. Don't tell me that the southern territory can resist your forces." Luo Jun said, "But wouldn't that cause a huge amount of losses amongst the experts of the human world? Moreover, the faith energy I receive would probably reduce greatly if I were to annihilate all the profounders of the southern territory. Right?" Meanwhile, the only woman in the group spoke abruptly. "You intend to use us to conquer the southern territory?" Luo Jun smiled and said, "I'm sure all of you've noticed that I was prepared to annihilate the southern territory. However, out of consideration for the fact that our human race should work together, I hope that the three of you would persuade those powers of the southern territory and make them surrender. After that, we can work together against the defiant profounders. Of course, if the three of you aren't willing, then I'll temporarily give up on attacking the southern territory and lead the elites of my empire to the hallowed grounds right now." The young man in the lead waved his hand and said, "Only by allowing you to gather the faith energy of the entire human race would you be extremely helpful to us. It wouldn't do work even if a single territory is left out. The profounders of the southern territory are bound by duty to resist the defiant profounders. Even though we don't want to interfere in the matters between all of you, the important matter at hand is to seal the defiant profounders. So, they must submit unconditionally to you no matter what and allow you to control the faith energy of the entire human world." Luo Jun was overjoyed when he heard this. "Come, let's go meet the profounders of the southern territory." The young man turned around and walked out of Luo Jun's dwellings. Right at this moment, Luo Jun spoke abruptly, "What if they refuse?" The young man stopped for a moment and said, "No one dares to disobey the hallowed grounds command. If they refuse, then we'll annihilate them." He walked off after he finished speaking. The man with a spear and the woman followed him out. The smile on Luo Jun's face gradually widened when he heard this, and then he couldn't help but roar with laughter in the end. Outside Ancient Domain City, "I'll give all of you 2 hours to open the city gates and surrender. Otherwise, today will be the day that all of you are buried." The young man floated in midair as he gazed coldly at Ancient Domain City, and his voice, which was enhanced by his profound energy, resounded throughout the city. Ding Xiaoyao, Xianxia, and the others were standing on the city walls, and Ding Xiaoyao frowned as she gazed at the three youths. She said, "Who are you? What beautiful women!" The eyes of the spear-wielding man lit up when Ding Xiaoyao and the others appeared on the city walls, and his gaze was moving incessantly through the four of them. He said, "Tisk, tsk. I never expected that while the profounders of Profounder Continent aren't really great, they have quite a huge amount of beauties. Su Wu, I, Lin Tian want these women. Don't fight me for them. Haha. He seemed to have intentionally enhanced his voice, causing it to sweep towards the surroundings and was heard by everyone here. The expressions of Ding Xiaoyao and the others immediately sank. The young man in the lead who was called Su Wu glanced at Ding Xiaoyao and the others, and then he said, "You can do as you please once we're done here." Lin Tian was overjoyed when he heard this, and then he leaped up into the air and shot an unrestrained gaze at Ding Xiaoyao and the others. "Little beauties, did you hear that? All of you are mine from today onward. Haha. Don't worry. I'll take all of you to the hallowed grounds to cultivate there if you satisfy me." Swish! A strand of saber chi tore through the air, and it instantly arrived before Lin Tian. 8th level saber intent? Interesting. Haha! Lin Tian stabbed his spear forward. It was like a raging dragon pouncing forward as it instantly blasted the saber chi into pieces. After that, Lin Tian's gaze descended onto Xiao Yushi, while he revealed a teasing expression and said, "Cold enough, charming enough as well. Haha, I like women like you. Only such a conquest would be interesting. Haha." Xiao Yushi was just about to attack when Ding Xiaoyao stopped her. And then Ding Xiaoyao gazed at Su Wu's group of 3 and said, "You don't seem to be Luo Jun's subordinates, right? Smart." Lin Tian gazed at Ding Xiaoyao and said, "Out of consideration for your ignorance and the fact that you're so beautiful, this young master will tell you about our background. We're from the hallowed grounds. We came to bring the elites of the entire continent with us to the hallowed grounds in order to help us suppress the defiant profounders. We need the mortal emperor's karmic luck. So all of you shouldn't put up a meaningless resistance and just surrender immediately. Don't worry, my baby. I won't allow the mortal emperor to harm all of you because all of you'll be mine. Haha, aren't you going to stop him?" The woman in a crystal blue dress spoke indifferently. Su Wu said flatly, "It's an honor for them that Lin Tian is fond of them, right? Aren't you afraid that he'll spoil our mission?" said the woman. "Who dares disobey the command of my hallowed grounds?" said Su Wu in a cold voice. The woman fell silent and didn't speak further. Ding Xiaoyao shook her head and said, "No matter where you've come from or how terrifying your strength is, all I know is that you've said something that you shouldn't have said. So, all of you'll pay a horrible price for that. After all, what kind of person was Yang Yi? He was a complete madman, and he would give no regard to the hallowed grounds once he was offended by them. Is that so?" Lin Tian roared with laughter. He laughed for a while before he said, "We'll pay a horrible price? How truly laughable. The inhabitants of this abandoned world actually intend to make us pay a horrible price. Baby, are you talking about doing that in bed? Haha, don't worry, my spear never falls. I'll be able to hold on no matter how formidable you are." How audacious! Meanwhile, the representative from the Dark Beast Empire roared furiously as he leaped off the city wall. And then he transformed in midair into an enormous fiery red lion as he smashed down forcefully towards Lin Tian. "You're courting death." A wisp of disdain arose on the corners of Lin Tian's mouth while he swiftly stabbed with his spear. An enormous black dragon flashed forward and smashed against the fiery red lion. Bang! The fiery red lion howled with pain in midair while its figure was blasted flying before crashing to the ground. How weak! Lin Tian shook his head with disdain, and then his figure flashed as he descended like a shooting star towards the lion. Swish! Right at this moment, Xiao Yushi appeared in midair, and then a ray of cold light flashed. A huge strand of saber chi tore through the sky and slashed down at Lin Tian. Humph! Lin Tian grunted coldly as he swiftly waved the spear in his hand, and then a ray of golden light flashed and collided forcefully with the saber chi. Bang! Both of them exploded in midair. Lin Tian chuckled and said, "Little beauty, your strength isn't bad at all, and that saber of yours is good as well. Come, let me give it a try." As soon as he finished speaking, Lin Tian gave up on pursuing the red lion and flashed explosively towards Xiao Yushi. Xiao Yushi's eyes narrowed slightly while Sheer Wing swiftly left its sheath, and then a wave of saber chi slashed forward. Everywhere they passed, space was torn apart and a very long rift appeared in the sky above ancient Domain City. "That woman's strength isn't bad," Su Wu spoke indifferently. Unfortunately, She's bound to not be a match for Su Wu, right? Said the woman. Besides that mortal emperor, is there any other in the same realm of cultivation throughout this continent who can be a match for us? If that mortal emperor doesn't gather the karmic luck of the entire continent, then wouldn't he still be like an ant before us? Said Su Wu flatly. The woman remained silent because those were facts. A wisp of surprise flashed through Lin Tian's eyes when he saw the terrifying scene created by Xiao Yushi's attack, and he said, "Beauty, I didn't notice that you have some ability, but it's still insufficient before Big Brother." "All right, Big Brother doesn't have time to continue playing with you." Lin Tian suddenly spun his spear once he finished speaking, and the space at the tip of his spear instantly warped while spear images shot out and covered the sky. In an instant, they blasted Xiao Yushi's saber chi into pieces. At the same time, Lin Tian suddenly appeared before Xiao Yushi, and his spear stabbed towards her. However, he'd used the other end of his spear and not its tip. "Yushi, watch out!" Ding Xiaoyao's expression changed. She was just about to send someone to save Xiao Yushi when a ray of sword energy shot over from the horizon. Ding Xiaoyao and the other girls on the city walls instantly heaved sighs of relief when they saw that ray of sword energy. The expression of the woman in a crystal blue dress changed as well when she saw that ray of sword energy. A sword howl suddenly resounded from the sword in her hand, and it started to tremble madly as if it was about to charge out from its sheath. Su Wu's expression had changed as well, and a strange symbol started revolving at high speeds in his hand. The target of that ray of sword energy was Lin Tian. Lin Tian turned around swiftly when he noticed the strong force pressing down upon him from behind, and he swiftly swung his spear against that ray of sword energy. Bang! Lin Tian was blasted 300 m back, and his palm that he held the spear with had split open while fresh blood flowed incessantly down his spear. Lin Tian's expression instantly became ferocious. Right at this moment, Yang Yi and Corpse Ancestor appeared here. "It's Yang Yi, it's Yang Yi. My God, he's still alive. He's still alive. Ha ha, ha ha. Yang Yi is still alive. He's still alive. Luo Jun is nothing now that Yang Yi is here. Ha ha ha. Yang Yi, Yang Yi, Yang Yi." As soon as they saw Yang Yi, everyone on the city walls of ancient domain city had started to cheer. Actually, they weren't hopeful at all when they were facing the attack of the exalted Han Empire's army before this. But once Yang Yi appeared here, all of them felt that the exalted Han Empire wasn't that terrifying anymore. He he he. Bizarre laughter resounded from Corpse Ancestor as he said, "Kid, looks like you're quite popular here." Yang Yi paid no attention to Corpse Ancestor. He walked over to Xiao Yushi and took her hand before he said, "Are you all right?" Xiao Yushi shook her head and said, "Their background isn't simple. You have to be careful. Yang Yi, you're actually still alive." Meanwhile, Luo Jun appeared in the distance with a group of people. His expression instantly became extremely colorful when he noticed that Yang Yi was actually still alive. On the other hand, the faces of all the Exalt Realm experts by Luo Jun's side were unsightly while their eyes were filled with fear. "You head back in for now. Leave the rest to me." Yang Yi spoke softly to Xiao Yushi. Xiao Yushi nodded, and then she flew up into ancient domain city. Yang Yi turned around and gazed at Luo Jun. He sized up the forces behind Luo Jun, and he immediately said upon noticing that Luo Jun had only brought less than 100 experts, "That's all the forces you brought? Luo Jun, are you sure that just that small amount of forces are able to protect you?" "Yang Yi." Luo Jun's expression turned savage. In the next moment, he turned around and led his group away, because he didn't want these subordinates of his to die for nothing. He had the faith energy from 3 territories now, so he was confident in his ability to fight Yang Yi, but Yang Yi still had the Corpse Ancestor and Divine Gold Dragon. So long as any one of them kept him busy, then all of his subordinates would definitely be slaughtered in a very short amount of time. He'd originally led this group over to witness the strength of those 3 youths from the hallowed grounds, but he hadn't imagined that he would see Yang Yi instead. Even a Saint Realm expert wasn't able to kill Yang Yi. Luo Jun clenched his fists tightly while his face was horrifyingly savage. Even though he really wanted to kill Yang Yi, He had to admit besides in Nanjing and himself, there was no other Exalt Realm expert throughout the continent that could stop Yang Yi. As for those 3 members of the hallowed grounds, truthfully speaking, he didn't look favorably upon them at all. Mortal Emperor, wait. Right at this moment, Su Wu said, "Could it be that you don't want to conquer the southern territory? Don't worry, the 3 of us are here. Let me see who dares to resist us." Luo Jun took a deep breath, turned around to glance at Su Wu, and then he said, "Hallowed envoys, allow me to give you a piece of advice. Go back and bring more forces with you if you don't want to die." As soon as he finished speaking, Luo Jun didn't stay for a moment longer, and he immediately led his group and vanished from everyone's fields of vision. Su Wu's face fell. "Looks like your reputation in the human world is really great." Meanwhile, Lin Tian suddenly said, "But it doesn't matter because you'll cease to exist after today. Was that woman from before your wife? Haha. Don't worry. I'll take very good care of her once you're dead. Ha ha ha." Corpse Ancestor shook his head and said, "I've never seen someone so desperate to die.